Meeting to order for Thursday, March 3rd at 5 o'clock. Can I get a roll call starting from my left?
Wiesinger here.
Minter here.
Hasdell here,
Goldman here.
and Mr. Barheid is out of the country. Number 3, can we get certified posting of the meeting, please?
I certify that on Monday, February 28th, 2022, the agenda for the Town of Rome Board meeting for Thursday, March 3rd, 2022 was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 3:15 p.m., posted at Rome Town Hall at 3:05 p.m., at Leicester Public Library of Rome at 4 p.m., and at Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 3:55 p.m.
Thank you. Number 4, can we get a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Number 5, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 6, citizen comments. During the citizen comment period of the agenda, the town board welcomes comments from any town resident, not a member of the town board, on any item not on the agenda. Please know that pursuant to state law, the board cannot engage in conversation with you, but may ask questions. I just lost something. Okay, the board may refer the item to staff, a standing committee, or a future board agenda for discussion and action. Each person wishing to speak will have up to 3 minutes to speak. Speakers are asked to submit a card to the clerk treasurer, providing their name, address, and topic for discussion. The board will also take comment from the public on agenda items as called by the chair, but not during the citizen comment. Please note that once the board begins discussion on an agenda item, no further comment will be allowed from the public on that issue. We do have one citizen comment here. Jacob Crenning? Yep. Okay. Hannah Derringer, please come up to the microphone and state your name and address, please.
Jacob Craning, 1086 Quarterstaff Court, Nakusa, Wisconsin. I just have 2 brief topics. One is the Wisconsin statute 167, which you guys did enact a few weeks back for regarding aerators, so that the Rome Police Department could enforce them more readily. It still is a pretty big gray area. It's been a 3-year issue with a neighbor of mine directly across the bay. I'm hoping maybe some further statutes or something involving like timers or switches or above 30 degrees or something could be enacted to make that safer and prolong the ice so that I don't lose a couple months of ice at the end of the year. I've tried dealing with the neighbor. Like I said, it's been 3 years, so at this point in time, I'm trying to hope maybe a city ordinance of just reasonable restrictions that make that safe. I also feel if this was the same situation, let's say in the channel or something like that, where, you know, on weekends, hundreds of people go up and down, that this wouldn't be allowed, but it's just me across from him on my bay, so I kind of fall into a ignored area there. But the Town of Rome Police Department has been very helpful. Second thing is we currently have some litigation with our neighbors involving riparian rights, docks, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of irrelevant, but a situation that is going to be coming up in the future is all of our deeds back to 99, the covenants, you know, originally stated 20 feet and docks need to be parallel to shore, and the original creators of the lake did this, in my opinion, for a reason, to avoid situations where we have docks bumping into each other. I realize boats have gotten bigger, docks have gotten bigger. Then we had the Lake Sherwood Association, you know, in 98, and then 2004, and then 14 and 18, they had the same thing, a 20-foot max. Then in 18, it just got changed to the DNR's guidelines, which is pretty vague. So we went from, you know, parallel to shore to basically no limit. Like in my particular bay, the sand is eroded out, so it's probably 30 feet out at 3-foot depth, and then it hits the DNR standard. But when you put 4 people around a cove, not everyone can have a 30-foot dock. We'd all be hitting there. So regarding the litigation, we are trying to have a riparian expert draw up, riparian zones, but without having a set line of navigation or pierhead thing by the city, it makes it really hard to do that. I realize this will not affect 99% of people on the lake, as they don't have any controversies with their neighbors, but in situations in coves and channels, if there was the possibility of putting this on the agenda to discuss a pierhead limit, it would make those people have to apply, and then maybe see if there was circumstances that meant everyone had to stay shorter so that we don't have confrontations, and maybe avoid future litigation for other people on the lake. I don't know. So I have pictures and stuff of the aerator. I don't know if it's something that would go on the agenda for next time and I can show you guys, or if it's something I can leave with you, or that's about all I got. So,
Okay, at this meeting, we can't get in conversation, but
Yep.
we can ask questions. Have you contacted DNR with your thoughts and complaints
on the aerator issue,
on anything? Yeah.
yeah, the DNR is very vague. I talked to, I believe, I don't know his last name, Wade, I think is the local DNR agent. He said you should never go on the ice. I said, well, my neighbor has an aerator. He goes, well, it's never safe to go on the ice. And I said, well, I know, but right now there's 14 inches on the main lake, and I have 6 in my bay because the aerator is constantly eating out from underneath. And he goes, well, yeah, but if you want my recommendation, just don't go on the ice. So I called the other hotline, and they said call the sheriff's department. This was this year. The first 2 years, I tried just dealing with the neighbor, and he just won't talk to me anymore. And I offered to buy a timer, or a temperature timer where it's, a reverse of a heater where it shuts off at 30 degrees and turns back on under 30 degrees. And I offered to pay for that with my own money. He did not take me up on that. It wasn't an issue the first couple of years. Now we have a 2-year-old who's active and walking around, and now I care more. They sent the sheriff's department referred Marone Police Department. Officer Katie Sis came out. Like I said, she was very helpful. She did get the statute, I think, to the town board, to you guys, and you guys did enact it so she could go out there and enforce it. The guy did put some binders, twine around it, and tied a couple flags to it, but in my opinion, it still doesn't meet the definition of the state statute. The other issue with the pierhead, and this is kind of a combined issue, is if we had a pierhead line or a riparian line, that would also kind of define how far you could mark your safety boundaries. Let's say my bay is 100 feet across, he's 60 feet out marking it off, and I have pictures of this. So if the bay is from here to here, and I'm coming out here, he's got markers out here leaving me 20 feet to get out on my own ice or to enjoy, four-wheeling or snowmobiling or ice fishing. And now if I cross that line, technically he's not liable anymore because I entered his zone. And if I touch that barrier that he made, then I'm disturbing a public safety barrier. So I'm stuck in a loophole here. I respect the right to have the aerator. I'm just asking that there has to be some, I forget the word there, compromise, is all. So.
Okay, I noticed Attorney Flanagan was making notes on some of this, so.
Okay, and I did look it up, and it from what I can tell, the DNR or the state legislature says any municipality may, with the DNR's permission, adopt a bulkhead, and in addition to a bulkhead line, that requires like an actual plat map and a bunch of survey and stuff, but it says on that same permit, they may just apply for a pierhead limit, and there is no survey or anything that'd be done. They can just say 24, 30. In my opinion, say we set that back at 20 or 24 feet, it would stop conflict in coves. And like I said, 99% of the people on main water or anywhere else are not going to have a problem and can put their 30-foot boat in on their 30-foot boat lift and do that. But at least it presents the people, like I said, in a tight cove from having a confrontation and from suing each other and spending thousands and thousands of dollars over nothing, which is kind of just silly.
Okay.
So. All right.
Thank you. No action contemplated except possible referral to future agenda. Number 7, information updates, meeting recaps, recent correspondent, current events and announcements. Jerry?
I have nothing.
Dan?
Well, just the update from the library. Adams County Library had applied with us for funding for a bookmobile. Unfortunately, that particular funding source was turned down by the state. Somebody else got the bookmobile, but they're pursuing some other options down from Adams County. So we're still trying to get a bookmobile.
I have nothing here. Dan?
Not anything.
Jamie?
I had 2 items. First item is We're getting ready for the spring election, which is going to be on Tuesday, April 5th. Again, polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. But we will be mailing the absentee ballots from Town Hall on March 15th. And I will mention this for all the meetings at the beginning of all of the meetings now going forward, but at this moment in time, drop boxes for ballots will not be allowed. If you get an absentee ballot in the mail from Town Hall, you'll have to mail it back to Town Hall, or you'll have to bring it in to Town Hall personally. So we just want to make sure that we try our best to get that information out across town, that if you are requesting an absentee ballot, it either has to be mailed back in or brought in personally. There won't be any drop boxes available to submit that ballot. And again, because election law does sometimes change, that is the rule right now, but we will keep the elections page on the website updated. And if something would change between now and then, we will put out a release, and it'll be posted on that page to get the most up-to-date information. The other item is our annual meeting is coming up. So the third Tuesday of April is always an annual meeting for towns. That's gonna be Tuesday, April 19th at 6 p.m. We'll do the state of the town address that evening, and then we usually have our regular town board meeting afterwards, just for efficiency, so we wouldn't be meeting on both Tuesday and Thursday if we didn't need to. So if you just wanted to hold Tuesday, April 19th, 6 p.m., that'll be the annual meeting for the town.
Okay, thank you. Discuss and possible action on the following items. Number 8, discussion and action approval of the February 17th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve as presented. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion's carried. Number 9, discussion and action approval of ordinance number 22, amendment to chapter 234 licenses and permits, sections 234-25, mobile food vending license application, and 234-26, mobile food license fees and conditions, change to expiration date and requirements for licensing.
I would just make 2 notes. So this proposed amendments in 2 areas, as the chairman had read. One is adjusting the date that the license renewal date is, and then therefore expiration date would be. That's being adjusted from December to March 31st. The reason that expiration date is being moved over to March 31st is to better align the expiration date of the permit and the renewal date of permits to better coincide with the season when we're getting our requests for those kind of permits or licenses. And so so we're proposing adjusting that date out to March 31st rather than to end December 31st. Second, we are proposing some adjustments or additions really to the first section that specifies parts of an application. It isn't because we haven't been asking for these things, but the 3 areas that we are proposing, including in the ordinance, are things that we have learned over the time that we've had our mobile food vending license that we want to know. Those include certain information for corporate applications, identification information for mobile food vehicles, and then just making sure that where there are licenses, permits, or certificates that are required by particularly Adams County and the state, that we have a copy of that also on file, so we're assured that they are getting those permits as well.
So, question from my own curiosity. If an individual or a company, et cetera, operates multiple vehicles, they still pay for one permit and list multiple vehicles with us, or how does that work here?
Amy, do you know offhand if we require a separate permit for each? I think they list all their vehicles under the permit.
I think we've only done one.
We've only done one.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't adjust that, but I believe we just require one permit for their vehicles. However, we certainly also do require that they give us the information about those vehicles. In this case, it'll be part of the ordinance and required that they provide us with that VIN, the license plate as well of each of those vehicles.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendments to chapter 234.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 10, discussion and possible action, approval of resolution number 22, terminate participation in the intergovernmental agreement between the Town of Rome and Tri-Lakes Management District for establishing a joint water environmental quality committee.
So there was a resolution included in your packet. This resolution just notes that why we are still in agreement with the 14 mile and the mission of 14 mile. They now have formed an alliance, and so the intergovernmental cooperation between Tri-Lakes and the town still exists, but the alliance is now a separate organization, a separate 501c3.
Just to clarify, so we had a resolution that was adopted back in 2017 that authorized entering into this intergovernmental agreement with Tri-Lakes for establishing this joint water quality environmental committee. Part of that resolution, the resolution that's before you this evening, has what that joint committee was charged with. The intergovernmental agreement that we have in place continues until it's no longer necessary and one party notifies the other in writing. As Jamie had mentioned, there is, so many of the members of what started as that joint committee have now formed what's called the 14 Mile Watershed Alliance, which is a nonprofit corporation that now continues really the charge that really that joint committee was established with. The resolution makes clear that really the town of Rome continues to have this active and substantial interest in protecting the quality of the groundwater, lakes, wetlands, and other surface water. But because of that overlap between them, there's still a group that is taking the charge of that and kind of carrying that on. Therefore, we really haven't had that joint committee that the intergovernmental agreement, kind of established. We haven't had that committee meeting because really the alliance has kind of taken that charge and continued on.
Yeah, basically, the association that ceased to exist, the original
Yeah,
committee.
pretty much.
So, yeah.
So, representatives of 14 Mile are aware of what this is all about?
Yes, I believe they are.
Yeah.
And I would, after approval tonight, we would extend the resolution to Tri-Lakes, and we would also ask them to adopt a similar resolution since they adopted a similar intergovernmental agreement when we did the committee.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to terminate the intergovernmental agreement.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Number 11, discussion and possible action, formation of a grants subcommittee.
So there's a memo in the packet. This is a follow-up from our discussion at the last town board meeting, but just identifying what the subcommittee potentially would be charged with. And then also putting in just some starting suggestions about who would be included in that grants committee. Tonight, what we would be looking for is a motion that we would approve having a grants subcommittee. Then we would start recruitment with our regular citizen members. I did put in the memo, I don't, given that it's a subcommittee, I don't think it needs terms of office like we do for our other committees. I think that could be kept more informal. They still would be noticed meetings, they would have agendas, they would be posted for the grant subcommittee, but I don't know that they need to have separate terms of office. Just people that have interest and would have these identified skills that would wanna serve.
And just kind of build on that, and I already mentioned but most of this at the CDA. I mean, I've got a paperwork here from Badger Bounce Back, and in it is 12 grants that are out there, and who knows where they came from, and, well, we know where they came from here, but what's out there, Jamie sees some of this, she doesn't see all of it, but again, 12 grants falls on our desk. It's a lot of research to do the work. I just felt it's important that we have some other people available to go out there and see what else is out there. Again, we found out from Derek today that they offer some grants, and then the USDA is offering almost identical grants to them. So it seems like the government's just, it's like a money tree out there, I guess, but I'd like to see if we can work on some of that and see what else is out there. There's probably a lot more out there than we realize. Also, CDA met with Rome Realty today and talking to Al Schmidt, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a grant out there for $10,000 for vacant buildings. So, I mean, that's something nice to have in the back pocket for any of the realtors. Hopefully we'll get it out to the rest of the realtors. You know, if somebody's interested in the building, say, hey, by the way, you know, you fill out the forms, you might be able to get another $10,000 for taking over a vacant building. So we've got some vacant buildings. It just makes sense. And then some of these other grants that are out there, there's this forest grant. This is unbelievable. There's a county forest grant funds out there. Adams County has 140 acres in forest county land, and that's all in Rome, nothing else in the county. It might sound like a lot, but then you look at Ashland County, which is up in the northwest part, they got 40,000 acres. Langley County's got 128,000 acres. Merionette County, 226,000 acres in forest county land. And how much did they pay for it? Want to guess? Zero. It's all funded, pretty much. And it produces income over time. So that's something I'd like to see folks go after. And we're trying to push the county on that. I know Jerry's been behind that for quite a while, trying to get the county to start doing some of this, and it's just so much out there. So anyway, that was my thoughts on the grant. I just think it's that important.
It's really good timing at this moment too, because the Adams County Economic Development Corporation has been contacted by the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation to say that Adams has been identified with 9 other counties as counties in the state that likely have been underfunded by state grant supported programs. And so they would like to work with these 10 counties that have been underrepresented to increase their share of the funds that are coming through state programming.
Yeah, it'd be nice for our comprehensive committee working on that to identify lands in the county of Rome that could fit into the county plan. So, what did you want to do on this? Did you want to?
We would need a motion to say that we would be activating a grant subcommittee.
I'll make a motion that we form a grant subcommittee.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Number 12, discussion of possible action, consideration of Adams County Humane Society request to place aluminum can collection on the town hall property.
So this, Supervisor Minter had requested that this be added to the agenda, after we had, and I forget your name. Sean speak about it at the last meeting. I would mention that Chairman and I went down and had spent a half day with Catherine at the Humane Society this past summer and toured the Humane Society and talked about needs at the Adams County Humane Society. We had identified some projects that we could work cooperatively with. We obviously have Channel 300, and I've put together a piece that could air on Channel 300 when there would be pets that would be available. I would just need photos taken and forward it from the Humane Society. In addition, we do have our own aluminum can collection at the transfer site. Those funds, all those funds from aluminum can collection go to community groups that would ask for funding. So if Adams County Humane Society would submit a request for those funds, they would also those would be made available. Depending on the amount of the request, it might have to come through town board. We did pass that internal policy that I think over $175 they come to town board. But we do have opportunities and do want to partner with them. I'm not sure about the aluminum can collection here on the site. I think that's only just because then one, it takes away from our piece at the transfer site where we collect cans for all community organizations, and two, just having it here on site with maintenance. I know they have volunteers that come out and do take care of it on a regular basis, but then if it's full and they can't get here and then we are moving cans and just the logistics of it. When I think we would be able to do funding through our can collection from the transfer site.
Was there any insight as to how much they've made off of that site?
$1,500 to $2,000 annually. That's what Catherine had shared with me, who's the executive director down at the Humane Society. $1,500 to $2,000 annually.
I mean, I know we have our can collection site out at the transfer station, and I know the dog park has their own for the dog park. But I'm wondering, I mean, obviously the transfer station is visited only by Town of Rome residents. I know when it was over at Pritzel's, there was also people that were just coming through and were dropping off their cans as either they traveled through or bought gas to go home and things like that. I'm wondering, you know, I don't know. I think there would be still people that would drop cans off here that would never have thought of taking them to the transfer station. But I don't know the answer to that.
Does the Gateway Overlay District even allow something like this to happen?
Well, it was at Pritzel's, which is part
Well,
of the
but
Gateway
it was always
overlay.
at
I mean,
Pritzel's,
I don't know that we ever, I'm not sure, given that it was for a good cause, that maybe we per se questioned it either. I think there's also the piece of, if you're going to the gas station and filling up with gas, you likely are getting additional drinks or beverages, or you might have those things in the boat because you're fueling up on your way home. I don't know if it makes a difference because this would be a unique step. You're not coming here otherwise for the convenience store to use the restrooms or to get additional supplies.
And part of that, to your question, would relate to where we might put it on our property, less would it be allowed. In Pritzel's case, I suspect that it existed before we had those regulations put in place. But for our purposes, if we did decide to put a collection site somewhere, it may drive where we decide to put it. If that was decided that you wanted to have a collection site bin wherever on town property.
Obviously, a high traffic volume area would be ideal. Our parking lot here really isn't high traffic volume, so I was trying to think of any businesses that would, you know, be interested in it, but I don't know. Thoughts? High volume somewhere?
I'd like to see us support the Humane Society in
Yeah.
other ways, if possible.
We can do that through the
Yes.
cans we do collect. I mean, that's open for all the organizations.
Yes, and I think, again, utilizing our media efforts and our subscription list to send out information and encourage others even to participate in the Humane Society, we've already had that conversation this summer. We're very open to do that, whatever they would share. So if it's a no to this, that's not a no to everything.
Would it make sense to develop a sign on our collection down at transfer site saying that this also supports Adams County Humane Society? So encourage some people to drop their aluminum cans there.
We could. Yep, I think the sign that's out there now is general, that says it supports all community organizations. There's one on the front that,
Pretty small one if I remember
yeah,
right.
but it says something to the effect of that it goes to support all community organizations, but we could put something that was specific for the Humane Society, yes.
It'll
How
be-
much do we take in on that can bin out there?
Right now aluminum is fairly high, but I think on an annual basis, several $1,000s.
Some of that's committed to the,
To the veterans, that is how we fund the annual veterans meal, yes. But, I mean, we're several thousand. And that's a committed fund, so it rolls, whatever's not spent just continues to gather in that fund.
We have a good bank in there right
Yeah, we do.
And to that sign, the sign language, is, my only thought would be that we develop that if we're going to not insinuate that that's just going to the Humane
Right.
Society. That, you know, that's kind of why we use it, you know, more broadly, because really we do support, you know, the community requests through those donations, and that can include the Humane Society certainly, but just so someone's not like, well, I gave those with the intention that they go towards the Humane Society.
No, it'd have to be worded properly, and it should basically say that the donation goes to the Rome area businesses or organizations, including Adams County Humane Society. So it's a joint effort.
before we went with the commingled pickup, aluminum was a separate bin over there. Do we have data how much was actually collected out of the separate bin for aluminum?
It wasn't a lugger, it wasn't a separate dumpster, it's always just been in that crate. It
Well,
wasn't.
no, I'm not talking about that.
Aluminum and plastic was together. It's
Aluminum
been a
and plastic
long
was
time since
together,
aluminum
yeah.
was
But I
separate.
just wonder if there's any any way to measure what was in there? Because I still see aluminum going in the commingled, a lot of it.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, would it make sense just to have one specific area for aluminum, one bin, and not turn that over, use that as that would be a huge boost if we could do that.
So if we even put aluminum in a lugger, how do we get it to Nakusa to?
Yeah, that'll be difficult.
Get another one. I mean, come on, think. Doesn't have to be the same piece of equipment there, but something like it.
Something larger than the,
We could get.
It doesn't have to be well, it could be larger.
Lugger and then us haul it to Nakusa scrap. We don't have the means of hauling a large lugger. We'd have to reload it into another truck.
There's gotta be other ways.
Or contract your hauler to haul it over.
Viziner would have to take it there.
We'd have to be careful, cause the money you'd be getting back might not be, he's gonna charge us $100 and some to haul it down there.
Right.
So you're gonna lose your $100 right away.
Yeah, okay.
We're at 33.50 last year.
Yeah, and people obviously don't always separate everything perfectly, so if it gets down and there's garbage in there, they're probably gonna hit us for a deduct. Like even the cans now there for the dogs, there's usually 25% garbage in there.
I filled up a 3-yard bucket on a loader last week. That was just garbage in that aluminum can collection.
What does the board wanna do?
Well, I'm not in favor of putting it here, but
No, I'm not either. Leave it open. I mean, there's other business. Can we send notes out to any I don't know. Perthos was an ideal location.
We can bring it up, I mean, we have the, Rome Business Alliance meeting on Monday, and I can
Yeah.
bring it up at the Rome Business Alliance meeting too, to see if there's other interest. We have also reached out to the dog park but they have their own can collection, and they do utilize they donate some of their funds too, to the Humane Society, so.
And maybe Quick Trip would be willing to put it back in once they're all done.
I don't know that we've gotten that impression yet, but it's certainly a conversation once they're finished. But,
Yes, sir.
Quick Trip Corporate is not into community development. I've already checked with corporate. You know, they don't do it at any other Quick Trip. I've already talked to corporate in Eau Claire. I talked to Lori Pritzel when I had to remove it, and then she told me to call corporate, and they said they didn't want anything to do with it. And as far as somebody had mentioned, the recycler that we have pick up from all our cages, he separates all the garbage out. He makes sure each site is kept clean.
How often does he hit the sites? Do you know?
It's Nick's Recycling down in Adams, but I mean, I've talked to him personally. We have a cage down at the Wisconsin Dells Hospital, south end of Adams County. We have one at the shelter. We'd like one back in this area for the north end. But Nick has told me personally that when people throw garbage in, he's responsible for it, and he takes it with him. So we would keep it clean, if that's a concern. But if your clerk wants to talk to Catherine about, we can apply for funds from your transfer site, maybe we could work it out that way and make everybody happy, because we've gotten calls at the shelter when I removed the cage from Fritzel's, what can we do with our aluminum cans? Maybe your residents didn't know that there was a cage at your transfer station.
Yeah, and yeah, we can put some PSAs out of there to let them know, and then I would expect that would go up in volume.
Website, we would do it on Facebook.
So,
and if for the dog park, that one isn't, I mean, you don't need a sticker to get into the dog park, right? So they could, if they could also take cans there too. And again, that supports dog park, but I do know that they do send donations down to the Humane Society also. But I can reach out to Catherine and say to put in a request for support through our aluminum can fund.
And then do a joint, that joint promotion thing where they put things out, where can people in Rome bring their cans to support the Humane Society, and we put it out and maybe we can double the volume of cans in that bin.
So, no action on this one? Okay, number 13, discussion of possible action, information regarding the bipartisan infrastructure law, BIL, and procedures associated with using federal funding for infrastructure projects. And you got a lot of paperwork on that one.
Yep, so I'm gonna invite Brad up to the podium. We did include just a memo that comes from the DOT and then a PowerPoint that they put together talking about the BIL program. We had this as a separate agenda item after the last meeting where we were discussing those various town paving projects, and the conversation came up about Apache and the amount of road use there. We did have a conversation with Supervisor Wiesinger and just sort of talked about that plan and how this program fits in. There is a lot of information in the packet. What's important, like the takeaway point here, is that because of the infrastructure bill, there's going to be lots of funds available in the next 5 years. Almost like 132% increase over any funding that we've seen before. So a great deal of funding related to infrastructure that will be available to municipalities. That is part of this BIL and specifically the STP funding that's focused in this presentation. So I just want Brad to then cover a little bit about what we're thinking about for the repairs to Apache and how this would fit into it.
Right now, I'm working through the process of filling out the application to ask for STP local funds to rebuild Apache Avenue from 8th Avenue to 10th Avenue. 2 miles. It's basically a stretch that has the bike path on the north side. The current estimate they're coming up with is about $750,000. That will be an 80-20 split, so we will be responsible for 20% if we are chosen. The reason we're kind of pushing this too fast right now is this needs to be submitted by April 1st because they want shovel-ready projects that they can have a plan set ready for this fall PS&E, which if you look through the application or the slideshow there, it kind of explains all the dates that we're trying to meet here. I have been in contact with General Engineering. They can prepare a plan set in time for us if we are chosen for the funding. But also keep in mind, if we don't get chosen this year, there's still 4 more years. We can have the plan set put together, about $7,000 you thought to put a plan together, and we just submit it again, next year or the year after. Keep submitting it till it's chosen.
What's the cost, the reason that the cost for rebuilding that is so high, because that's higher than normal?
Because you're going through the state process. For one, that road also has a 5-foot bike lane on the side. It's a lot more extra asphalt. And also with the state process, it's like $14,000 for the state review of the plan. There's also a PS&E fee, which is talking about being about 15%. They bid it out, construction engineering on site. When they build that road out there, we are hands off. Basically, once we are chosen and given the money, we're hands off. It's all the state's project.
That explains why it's so costly.
Yes.
Anytime DOT gets involved or state.
Yeah.
What did Akron cost when that portion was rebuilt? Do you know?
That wasn't really rebuilt. That was just a wedge and overlay. That was, well, last year,
We'd have to just
That-
look in the workforce, what we,
140 maybe.
But I mean, if this did get approved and it's estimated at 750 and we're only paying 20% of that,
Yeah.
can't argue with that.
The number I'm coming with right now, our percentage would be about 125,000. So we have to keep that in mind too, then doing our budget next year for 2023, which is when the road will get done. If we still have the same 446,000 in the road, 125 roughly is going straight to that. Plus, we have to keep a buffer because when it's bid out through a state project at the 80-20, anything that goes over it, one single dollar over what the contract was awarded at, we have to pay the difference. They don't keep extending the 80-20. So if it's estimated to be at $100,000, let's use that easy number, and it comes in 120, we have to pay the extra $20,000.
So if they screw up managing the project, it's on us to pay for it? That's how it works?
Yeah.
That's nice.
They don't allow any change orders to the who gets to pay for it.
What's the rating on Apache right now?
Anywhere from a 5 to a 7, because you have each road from intersection to intersection is a section.
Okay.
So there's 20-some sections at least through there, and anywhere rating from a 5 to a 7.
Are we just limited to this particular project, or can you submit more than one project for this grant?
We could submit more than one project, but I'd hate to submit, say, 2.
Does that hurt our chances?
I don't know if it hurt our chances, but I think we'd be very happy getting one project. Let's just say we submit 2 roads,
Yeah,
and they pick the other one, but Apache's the one we want done. Then we're kind of,
but it might be where you get one, they wouldn't pick it anyway.
Yeah.
Do we know? Or
but we are
chances?
talking too, though, because this is the 2020, that's an easy road where we can do a pulverized base and pave without having a very thorough plan set. The next stage that Jamie and I have talked about doing is then doing Apache from 10th up to 13.
Yeah.
Because then after 2022 and the 2024 and 25, the next cycles, you can also apply for engineering at an 80-20. That road will need engineering
Okay,
to get the
gotcha.
bike trail. So then we'd apply for that. Each year we'll keep applying, yes. And then kind of our next thought is to keep extending Apache out to 13.
And do you have a short-term plan, intermediate plan here until we can rebuild it as to repairing that surface?
Just keep patching it, and then when the weather cooperates and gets warmer this spring, late spring, early summer, we'll go with the mastic machine and patch too.
And the mastic will help. I mean, that's something that we haven't been able to do before now that we have the equipment. But we do have, I don't wanna say unfairly high hopes in case we wouldn't be awarded it, but I think we're in a very good position because we would be able to get the engineering done. We have the ability to have things prepared well to be submitted in.
So doing anything over and above that might just be putting a little bit too much out there at this point.
And you gotta remember, it's April 1st deadline per application.
Yeah.
You gotta have your engineering and
Yep.
I know Brad in his conversations with the engineering firms, because for a lot of these surface transportation program, these STP programs, you're gonna need engineering, and then they're getting bid through the state. So this is gonna be a big commitment for the state for the next 5 years, right? This is a lot of funds. And so they had expressed that some of the smaller projects or roads, towns that are bidding out smaller projects, they might be at a real disadvantage because all of that work, all of that focus is going to these big projects and to these contracts. It might be difficult, like our roads that we are next on the agenda, getting them done over the next 5 years because the contract, there are only so many contractors that can do that asphalt work, and they will be busy.
Yeah.
Eligibility criteria, simply connector road, however they're defining that for a road.
It can be any local road, or that road there has to be classified as a minor collector, which I think is gonna give us a little bit of a bump, because it's not considered just a, like a subdivision road. It's gonna help us, but otherwise, any local road in the town can be submitted. But from talking, like Jamie mentioned, to talk with the state, they really don't want a $50,000 500-yard project. They want big projects.
So theoretically, for future years of this grant, I know there was talk about extending those roads in the Rome Town Center. Are those things that in future years would fall into this, or is it like just the rebuilding existing roads and
They haven't said yet that I've heard you can actually do a new road. It's all existing roads.
existing roads?
But also, like, keep in mind, if you read through the flyer there, this is all still very tentative and very young in nature here. The state hasn't really committed, the feds haven't committed the money yet.
Need any action?
We wouldn't need action. We just kind of wanna, after our conversation at the last town board meeting, wanted to lay out the plan a little bit more.
as long as we got a plan to do some temporary patching, so it's a lot more drivable. And hopefully the mastic will do that for us.
Good.
Just one last question. If this project all happens and everything, the state's involved and they're running it in DOT, do they clear right-of-ways and such?
This project here, because it's this early 2022, they want projects that have no right-of-way, no wetland, no utility, basically no conflicts, which is why that road is a perfect wanted to do, because there are no conflicts out there for what we're gonna propose of putting a 4-inch base on it, pulverize and repave. Then now the next stage is when you can get a design done through an engineering firm, they'll help cost share that, the 80/20. Then you can look at right-of-way acquisitions, utilities, which is why the next step, Apache going towards 13, there's a big culvert down. That could then be changed as part of the project, which would obviously be very expensive, but they need to spend the money, have it allocated and spent in 2022. Not spent, but allocated, award to a project so they can do it in 2023. It needs to be off the book yet this year.
They wanna spend this money. If they don't spend this money, then it's like, well, did you need the money? So they are very interested in having projects to make sure that they have these funds allocated.
Motion?
She said we didn't
No.
need.
We don't need a motion?
No.
Okay. All right. Good. Number 14, discussion and possible action, approval of 2022 various town paving projects of 9th Avenue, Squire, Lilac, and East Court bid.
Motion to approve the proposal and award the bids as recommended.
Second.
Discussion? I went and visited all these roads today, and I was like, I know we were talking about the Lilac Court before, but that road's terrible. Wow.
No,
Wow. It's missing. There's pavement gone. I was talking to one of the residents there, and they're just, well, it's the way it is. No, it doesn't have to be that way, but looking at some of the other ones, I think these are good choices to get done, yes. So, okay, we have any further discussion?
One thing is, just appreciate you approving this, but keep in mind too, like Jamie mentioned, the cost to do these roads as this infrastructure bill comes through is gonna be much more expensive.
Yeah.
Which is why we should definitely be doing these this year, because the cost of doing them is gonna go through the
Alex,
roof.
we have the bids from the American Asphalt, and some of the roads I was looking at there, how much, when they repave a road and just put paving on top, how much do they put down?
You're talking like an overlay,
Yeah,
1.5 to 2 inches.
yeah. One of them looks, I think it was Squire, I think. There was huge patches there, and it wasn't even an inch that was
That's the
missing.
patch that we put down to hold it together.
I'm sorry?
That's the patch that we have put down to hold the road together.
Okay. All right.
It was a lot of hand patch was put out there last year.
Well, these weren't potholes. They were 5-6 foot by 2 and 3 foot. They're pretty good sized areas that are just
That's
missing.
The size of
material.
some of the potholes we were filling last year.
Where, Are they do they guarantee any of this work? I mean, do you grade all these different contractors?
Grade them.
Yeah. Any better than the others? I mean, somebody can come in with the lowest bid, doesn't mean they do the best work.
American is the main paver in this area.
basically the only one.
They're the only one. Yeah, they've got a monopoly on it. There ain't no competing.
But we do, so, we do review the work. They take temps of the asphalt before it's poured. We make sure that it's the quality. I mean, we communicate that with American within 7 days of the work being done to ensure that they've met contract, yes.
And these are not overlays, they're grinding the existing surface, starting with
Starting
complete
over.
new pavement.
Okay. We have, any further discussion? We didn't do a motion yet, did we?
I did.
We did a motion and a second. Yes? Audience?
You guys get any kind of discount by telling them you're gonna do all these projects at once? So that they have all their machines here, they move from one road to the next?
Yes, just one mobilization charge.
Cause they were all bid as a group.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 15, discussion and possible action, continue consideration of potential American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA project funding options.
Chairman, question.
Yes, yes.
The motion was to approve awarding the American Asphalt bids for the roads. Did we have to do anything with the chip sealing bid, or did we do that last month?
Last
Aye.
time you did that.
That was
yep.
last time. Thank you.
This is at 4 roads, so,
All right.
okay,
Just didn't want to miss it.
yep, thank you. Number 15,
So I did include an updated memo in the packet. We'll just continue to update the memo that we had first originally saw, just to keep track. I did take out the two highest cost projects that we discussed, last meeting that won't be funded, and I put in asterisks the gas line expansion, because that one was funded, and up to which amount, just again, so we can keep track. I added on two additional, one, talking about this bipartisan infrastructure law and the STP funding, setting aside funding for, the engineering costs. Again, $7,000 to $10,000 over the next 3 years to ensure that we can do that engineering to submit potential grants. The other one I added has been kind of a conversation that we've had off and on, but setting aside essentially formation of a fund that individuals that would have hardship in cleaning their lots could apply for funds to get their lots cleaned up if they weren't in compliance with the brush and timber. So if they would give some sort of notice saying that they're not in compliance, and they would demonstrate hardship that they would not be able to clean up their lot, how we could assist to ensure that that work would get done. We would have to set up that program. It's just another potential that the funds could be used for. I would just note though, road maintenance projects, so in funding all three, again, we do have that small deficit this year of that $9,800 that is here in ARPA funds. It potentially could come from someplace else. But given that we funded all three, if we wanted that small shortfall to come out of ARPA, we would add that to the next agenda as a separate motion like we did for the gas line expansion.
Are there any of these that we should be, like, okay, you said the road shortfall is one that should go on. Are there any of these others that are sort of like, time sensitive? Like I'm thinking camping permits, we're heading into camping season.
Yeah, we're gonna release that information on Monday, so it would be for next season if.
Oh, it would be
that's-
for a year
yeah,
from now.
it would be
Okay.
for a year
All
from
right,
now.
nothing you need to have like by April 1st or anything like that, okay.
No.
And the fire department stuff?
The fire department stuff, we are also pursuing, a series of other grants. So again, that would be an up to $80,000 number if we did award that, and then we got some additional grants, that number potentially could decrease. But, so in awarding any amount, that just ensures that we can place the order, right? But then we would deduct from that if we got other assistance.
Wouldn't this purchase also fall under a 2% dues allocation?
That is an excellent question. I would assume a piece of it would fall under 2% dues, but I would have to just ask Chief on that. I mean, it would be
Where do you want to take it from?
yeah, and it would be a big chunk of it too, of our, what we have in reserve there.
We got close to 100,000, I believe, don't we?
Yeah,
90?
so this would, and
This is 80 right here.
96 to 100 is right, yes. So 80 of it would be the vast majority.
Okay, so that's an option, but
Yep. Or even a split, right, if it was an up to amount.
yeah, unless there's other plans for the 2% money.
I had another item to add, about an emergency switch for our emergency vehicles to control the traffic lights here. Would that come under our cost or the state, or
I'm gonna,
especially for the ambulance, every minute counts?
is that, Brad, are you aware, is that something that they would consider for us?
I don't know if I've ever heard of that, no.
Yeah, I don't, we
Haven't
would
heard
have
of
to.
it. You haven't seen where the lights change on an emergency vehicle?
That's not common in this region.
No,
I'm sorry, where I'm from, I've seen, it's all over the place.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
very common.
I don't,
It's an intersection.
is that intersection really that big of
Yeah,
a deal though?
well, if you got traffic on a Saturday or Sunday, you want safety. You got your green light, the emergency vehicle can go through it, so
They'd still have to yield though. I mean, if they had lights and sirens on, they'd have to yield.
slow down, but
Yeah.
at least it gets the traffic to stop, so. I don't know the cost. It doesn't sound like it'd be a high cost, but I think it makes sense, especially when you got traffic doing 45 or better.
We'd have to ask if it's an option, if it's something they would even
Yeah.
consider.
and it has to have DOT approval besides.
Yep.
That
Probably,
could be
they'd probably even cover it if they do it, but, wow. Anything else?
Were there other, any other potential projects that we'd like to see added. Again, as we continue to formulate the list, if things come up, it can always be emailed to me and we'll just continue to add. Or are there any that we feel strongly about that we would add to the next agenda for separate approval?
Brad, you got any other roads that are in dire shape?
A lot of,
money, I'll spend it.
Yeah, I'm like,
he's got a lot of them, I know that.
Sounds like me.
Are there any that are really, that need instant attention, or, like,
We go right down the 5-year list and start our 2023 roads.
maybe bring them in next time and take a look at them, and,
I guess, first thing I need to know how much money is available.
we need to know how much you wanna spend.
well, again, if you're talking 100,000 to 150,000 for a mile of road, right? That's a big chunk. I don't know if again, talking about grants and applying for grants and having the information ready, if it makes sense then to say, we're gonna set aside 7,000 to 10,000 of these funds per year to get the engineering done, so we're ready for any grants that come available. That might be a better way that we get more bang for our buck out of these funds long-term.
Yeah, on that point, I think, the early guidance, and I think it continues to be so, was that where you can get the most bang for your buck and maybe have something like that 80-20 split that was talked about, that maybe you utilize ARPA funds to cover the 20.
Yeah. Brad?
But ARPA is a federal fund, right?
Yes?
I believe if you look through the slideshow, you can't use any federal funds as part of this STP project.
Okay,
for
so-
your portion.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's a limitation in this program.
So it has to be on current projects then.
I know with other grants, they are encouraging where you can get possible grants, that cover some of the costs that'll make those ARPA funds go farther.
Do you have any other roads that won't make it to next year?
I can start a list.
My preference is still to see the majority of the ARPA funds go into the roads. So
I agree.
if you can put something together for us to look at, that'd be great.
A while back, didn't you say we were behind, we were needing to spend about funds to cover 5 miles a year, and we were only doing 3, so I was under the impression the whole time we're behind.
Yes.
We are behind.
Yeah, we are 4.2 miles this year.
Why don't you come back up to the mic just so.
She just doesn't want to turn around.
But I guess, I'm gonna need to know how much money I have to spend. 'Cause that's to determine what road we do, or what size road. I mean, look at this year, the mile of paving on the 9th Avenue is 240,000.
Well, why don't you give us a couple options to pick from? One that's small, medium, large?
Probably gonna be a cul-de-sac if I had to guess.
Yeah, I guess I need to know, are we looking at 50,000 or the whole 240?
No, you're not getting to it.
Okay, so what,
188,000 to work with, but
yeah,
65's already committed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have less than 288 now, so.
You're on.
so is there a number?
Less than 60, well, less than the residual of 144 minus 65.
probably 200,000 roughly. You wanted to
I'm
really,
talking well for this year, but next year we'd look at it again.
well, this paving wouldn't get done until next year probably, right?
Well, we can rebid more.
They still are giving out bids for work this year?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were pretty well full.
So we did talk about doing the paving by the ambulance exit.
Yep,
I think that was one of your items too, right, for the
Yeah.
ARPA money?
yeah, those, the pad by ambulance, the pad by the salt shed, and paving by the library, those were,
Yeah.
I had grouped those three in there too.
That's 35,000 there.
They target 175 to 200.
That's
See
it.
what else.
I did have one more item about striping this lot, either the whole thing or maybe at least the handicapped.
Just much more fun, not.
Yeah. Much more versatile the way it is.
All right, what are we gonna do on this?
I don't know that we necessarily need a motion on this. I
Yeah.
think for the next meeting though, I'm gonna add in the 2022 road projects, that 9,800 that we would be over. And we'll talk about that 175 to 200,000 for additional road projects and have something back presented for the budget. Do you also wanna see the
Give us some
piece-
options on that, so.
Yep, the piece about the engineering needed if we apply for additional, bipartisan infrastructure, the BIL funds.
But there's a question of whether or not we can actually do that, right? utilize ARPA funds to pay for?
For the
Yeah,
engineering,
they're talking about the engineer.
yeah, we
Just
would,
that one is.
Engineering for next year or this year? So you're not looking at this
we
year?
would set aside, well, again, so to do Apache,
Yeah.
that's quick engineering, but it's
yep.
about $7,000 to get that done. So,
Okay,
um,
gotcha. You're looking-
we could set aside 7 to 10 for engineering cost in order to prepare the packets for the BIL funding. We're not gonna get that back, cause it's not construction cost, and again, Brad mentioned in the future, it could be 80-20 with engineering if we're awarded, but, we could start to put together packages.
That item's already on our list, showing 7 to 10,000.
Yes, yep,
That makes sense.
yeah. It's just, so
Bring it.
whenever we would make the decision, we wanna take one of these to the next step, then it has to be a separate noticed agenda item, that's all.
Well, I think we should cover the engineering for Apache.
Okay,
Agreed.
okay, so we'll make that one a separate item by itself. Okay,
And you got a bid on that.
Okay. So we'll go to 15 here? No, we'll go to 16 here, right? The board may go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Continue consideration of possible ARPA fund hazard premium pay amounts to town employees.
Motion to go in closed session.
Can I get a roll call from my left, please?
Weisinger, yes.
Second.
Asdo, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You started the yes too quick.
Asdo, yes.
Goldman, yes.
We are now in closed session.
so we're gonna exit into the other room. Again, just a reminder that the cameras stay live and the mics stay on in this room.
Guys, let's go, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll.
Not the big parking lot in the town center, but this little.
Yeah, it's really big, that's why I'm here.
Can you do any earlier tomorrow?
I'm sorry?
Did you close it out already?
Oh,
no.
we're still here.
Oh, no, that's, I just, okay. I'm gonna give these to someone before I leave.
You're the only person that's ever stuck around.
I wasn't gonna, and then they were talking to me about the foyer, and they're like, you should actually give them that, and I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm still here, and I seen you walking out, so.
Just tell them, might not wanna leave the supervisor's road on. If you're only gonna do half the road, remember which side of the road he lives on.
All right, number 17, the board reserves the right to enter into open session authorized by Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85, Sub 2, to possibly take action from the closed session and continue with the agenda. Can I get a roll call vote for my motion? I'm sorry, from my left?
I'll make a motion to come,
Roll call. Oh, motion first, I'm sorry.
make a
Getting ahead of
motion to go
myself.
back into open session.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by roll call vote, starting from my left. How's that?
Wassinger, yes.
Minter, yes.
Hazel, yes.
Goldman, yes.
We are now in open session. Dates and items for future agenda meetings,
Just to mention, no action from closed session at this time. Yep.
no action, yep.
So next agenda items, we've got 3 plan commission items, 2 zoning amendments, and the preliminary plat for Sedge Village that will come at the next meeting.
You discussed some in the ARPA
Yep.
conversation.
Do you wanna add a conversation about what the gentleman was here to speak about tonight as far as the aerator and the docks?
Can I just
Give some-
suggest that, some of what was discussed is enforcement related? I would just recommend that if he wants to leave something, to leave it with you, Jamie, and then you get it to chief. I am happy to have a conversation from the enforcement perspective. If there's something that's covered in statutes, we certainly have adopted that, and if there's, something that we need to do from an enforcement perspective, I'd like to have those conversations before we bring it to town board to possibly do something, just in the same way that we, had made the recommendation, brought the ordinance, updates to you.
And we did discuss about writing a letter, drafting a letter.
And I don't understand the process, is why I'm raising my hand. I don't understand if it's, has to go through the agenda. My understanding is the town does, through the DNR, have the right to enact, like Minocqua has its own aerator laws, and Hazelhurst and some other municipalities have made stronger laws than what the DNR has enacted,
So we adopted state statute. One of the options we could have had, would be to adopt something stronger than state statute. At that time, it was recommended to, incorporate state statute. We hadn't done that. But, you know, in the
Can we-
same way
can
that
we-
we've done in the past, we sometimes will prepare some of those ordinance, pieces beforehand and then bring forward a recommendation rather than, spend time like a legislative committee working on, drafting an ordinance with just the board. I think the request, or what I'm asking for, is to be able to work on, what that would be from, the chief's recommendation, you know, from what he's seeing with enforcement. And then, if needed, we'd bring some recommendations for ordinance language to you at that time.
I'll ask a question, you can respond to the attorney. Is that aerator attached to a dock?
define attached.
It has to be attached to a dock per
No,
DNR.
that's one of my issues.
Just, that's for the attorney's information. So.
No, I know the DNR thing says it has to be attached. He actually has, there's 2 heads, and their hoses coming down, and they're just laying on the lake bed. But I cannot find anyone to enforce that. The sheriff's department sent the town of Rome, police department, they said.
That's a
so
DNR
far-
issue.
Yeah, again, we
So-
adopted statute. If statute will require something. That's why I said,
Is it,
some of this sounds like an enforcement issue that I would like the opportunity to talk to the chief and figure out if, I just, the last thing I would do would be start with adjusting an ordinance we don't need to adjust. If there's an issue with something that's required by state law that we have adopted,
Yep.
Is it-
we need to look at that. That's,
Right.
it would be improper for us to just start
Yep.
working on our ordinance before getting down to the root of things, and figuring out if it's an enforcement item.
do we enforce DNR items?
Absolutely.
When we incorporate statute, we enforce.
There's
those
statutes and there's DNR
sections.
regulations. The regulations,
If you're
I'm
talking
looking at
about
boating
NR
laws in
NR
particular.
something,
laws are one thing. I'm
if you're
talking about
talking about
regulations.
a section of NR,
Yeah.
if we incorporate those, then sure. But I mean, that goes back to why we adopted and incorporated those parts of state statute. So again, I would like to review that with the chief, figure out if this is an enforcement thing, or if this is something that we maybe would recommend, updating our ordinance to, but I really think you would wanna start there
Yep.
and figure out if, what exactly the issue is, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, we've been through that a few times with them, and some of there's things that we can't enforce. It's not
Well,
up to us,
that's-
it's strictly them.
Yeah, and that's how the DNR operates.
You
You
bet.
can do this, but you can't do that because we do that. Because we feel like it. Although we don't want to, so why don't you do it?
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
you gotta
working
figure it
with them. Yep.
Sounds like the DPA. Of course, that's
Any
the
other
state.
items for the next agenda? Okay,
You gotta go motion for adjournment?
oh, next,
Oh,
Next
meeting date
meeting.
and time, hold on. Meeting date and time.
March 17th, 5 o'clock. Same place.
St. Patrick's Day.
I'll be here.
Oh, it is St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah,
We're green.
Yes.
no. All right, now can I get a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
38.
36.
Jamie, can I get that stuff from you on Tuesday?
Yes.